Hi, this is Dr. K from iMedicalSchool, and today we're going to talk about life after residency. Specifically, the 6 things you need to know when negotiating your first contract. Make sure to check out our other educational videos on our YouTube channel, iMedicalSchool. If you like what you see and you learn something, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. So you've done the legwork, filtered through jobs, and now you focused on a position that you really like. Negotiating a contract really is not hard, but it takes time and patience. There's a really good book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss that I think is a phenomenal read. By highlighting human behaviors like how mirroring language makes others feel more comfortable, Chris Voss provides tips on how to negotiate. More importantly, these skills can be used in difficult conversations. If you're a part of the healthcare field, you definitely know something about that. So I put a link in the description. If you're interested, check it out. Just because you're a great doctor does not make you a great negotiator or lawyer. The advice I'm about to give is from my experience and should not be taken as legal advice. Which brings me to my first point. Get a lawyer. I know in medicine we have this instinct to avoid lawyers at all costs. But when negotiating a contract, you need them. A lawyer will help you negotiate and point out issues you did not realize you needed to think about. A lawyer can help you with things like who owns a patent you create while employed, or are you allowed to have a side hustle? It can be soul crushing to think about paying the little money you have to a lawyer. I would suggest talking about fees up front and placing a cap for fees or discuss a flat fee to make things affordable. Make sure your lawyer specializes in healthcare because they will have insight into topics like non-compete clauses and billing reviews that other lawyers may not know about. Number 2, bonuses are not free money. It feels so good to hold that sign-on bonus check while you're still in training. Remember, sign-on bonuses are not free money. Many times in the contract, it will state if you leave before a certain time frame, you will need to pay back a percentage of the bonus depending on how long you worked for. Your goal is to not leave your position, but you need to review your contract like that is a possibility. Use a part of your sign-on bonus, but keep the rest as an emergency fund. Number 3, length of the contract. We need to understand what the true commitment we're signing up for. You can be given a 3-year contract, but if you look at the fine print, you may understand the true length of that contract. For example, if a 3-year contract states a 90-day notice can be given for no-cost termination, then no matter how long that contract says it is, the actual contract is only for 90 days. The reason is that at any point you can be fired for no cause and you only have 90 days left of employment. This works both ways. For example, if you do not like the position you join, then you can give notice and only have a 90-day obligation before you can move to another position. Understanding the true length of the contract is important so you know your actual contractual commitment. Number 4, malpractice insurance. Just saying the word malpractice makes me feel like I need to wash my mouth out with soap. Though it's a dreaded topic, malpractice insurance is important to understand. There are 2 main types of malpractice insurance. The 2 types are occurrence and claims made. Occurrence is when the insurance covers you for any claims that occurred during your period of employment. So even if you leave your position, you are covered for claims that are made even years later, as long as the event occurred during your period of employment. Claims made insurance covers any claims that are made while you're with a specific insurance carrier. The key difference with claims made is that if a claim is made after you leave a position and no longer have that insurance, the insurance does not cover you even though the event occurred during your period of employment. This is where something called tail insurance plays a role. Tail insurance is a supplemental insurance that covers you for claims made after you leave a position. If your job provides claims made insurance, you should make sure they provide tail insurance. It is really important to know who pays for tail insurance and how long after you were to leave will the tail insurance be in effect. As part of evaluating any job, you need to understand malpractice laws in the state you practice. Does your state have medical review panels that filter out frivolous lawsuits? Is there a high risk of malpractice in your state? We all practice medicine to the best quality standards, but we need to prepare ourselves for the worst case scenario. Make sure to get educated about this process. Number 5, non-compete clauses. A non-compete typically states that if you're no longer employed by a practice or hospital, you cannot work within a certain radius of the practice or hospital. For example, a practice may state you cannot work within 25 miles. This is done to help prevent you from pulling patients away from the practice. They may even include language that states even though you're outside of this radius, if you affect referral patterns to that hospital, the hospital can still take legal action against you. Non-compete clauses are unfortunately a common occurrence in healthcare, which puts physicians at a great disadvantage. In fact, President Biden issued an executive order for the Federal Trade Commission to investigate non-compete clauses in many industries, including healthcare. While this does not change any laws for the moment, this is a step in the right direction. In the meantime, it is important to negotiate your non-compete. For example, negotiating distance is important if you go to multiple hospitals or clinics. Clarify from which site or sites does a non-compete begin. If you go to multiple sites, you probably want to focus the non-compete from the main site you work from. The duration of the non-compete and the services that it prevents you from offering are important to discuss. Several states have laws that require groups or hospitals to include a buyout clause for non-competes. A buyout clause means that if you pay a certain amount to the organization you worked for, then the non-compete is no longer in effect. Unfortunately, many of these laws only stipulate a reasonable price has to be offered, without stating what is reasonable. So there's significant space for interpretation. If you do not define the specifics of a non-compete in your contract, your non-compete may cover a far greater area and be more difficult to get out of than you would expect. Number 6, understand your compensation and incentives. Understanding your compensation and benefits is the most important part of the contract. Are you salaried or are you on an RVU model? Does compensation change with time? Particularly for private groups, you may begin salaried and then transition to an RVU model after 1 to 2 years. RVU stands for Relative Value Unit. Work RVUs are assigned a specific value based on the average compensation for your specialty or scope of practice. RVUs can adjust based on a sliding scale. This is where the value of each RVU changes based on different levels of RVUs produced. For example, the first 200 RVUs may be assigned a different value versus the next 200 RVUs. It is important to understand what the average RVU production is at the practice so you can estimate your compensation. A way to do this is to see if you can be given the typical schedule for a provider and see how many RVUs they produce in a week or month. This way you can compare how much work needs to be done to meet a specific RVU level. If you do join private practice, it's important to understand what are the criteria for partnership. For example, after 2 years, you may go through a review process by the existing partners who vote on whether you can become a partner in the practice. Understanding the criteria for partnership is key. It's important to ask how many members in the past 10 years have not achieved partnership and why they did not, so you understand the culture in the group regarding partnership. If there is potential ownership in a surgical center or into other services of the practice, it is important to know what the buy-in is. A buy-in is essentially money you give to the practice to gain a certain level of ownership in the practice or surgical center. In return, you receive a portion of the revenue generated by the practice. Having these details spelled out prevents any confusion down the road. Lastly, if you're employed or salaried, make sure you understand when your compensation can be changed. Though you may have a 3-year contract, there may be wording that states they can revise compensation on a yearly basis. Having a clear idea of what your contract says without making assumptions is key to preventing surprises in the future. To recap, there are 6 things you need to do to negotiate your contract. 1, get a lawyer. 2, remember bonuses are not free money. 3, understand the true length of your contract. 4, understand malpractice insurance. 5, negotiate non-compete clauses. 6, Negotiate and define your compensation and benefits. Remember, if it's not in your contract, there is no guarantee, so get your contract reviewed by a lawyer and remain patient through the process. For those who have gone through this process and had some surprises that I did not mention, please share your experience by leaving a comment down below. If you have questions, let me know and I'd be happy to answer them. I hope you learned something today, and if you did, help support our channel by giving us a like, share, and subscribe. This is Dr. K from iMedicalSchool, and I'll see you next time.